This episode of Pool Magazine Podcast is proudly sponsored by 10Jam. Thinking of adding a sun shelf to your pool? Infinity by 10Jam is a freestanding sun shelf that can be delivered, installed, and ready for use on the same day. Finally, a tanning ledge without the need for costly pool renovation. Infinity by 10Jam is the fastest and most simple way to add a sun shelf to your existing pool. Want to learn more? Visit us on the web today at www.10jam.com.
And thanks for joining us on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Trusty, and today we have two returning guests who've both been on the show before and really know this side of the industry inside and out. We got Frank Vitori from leading online retailer Aqua Blue Mosaics. He's back with us, along with Chuck Nitschke, National Director of Sales for the Outdoor Plus, a company that's been a go-to for a lot of builders when they're looking to elevate a pool project. Guys, I appreciate both of you coming back on the show to talk shop with us today.
Thanks for having us again, Joe.
Yeah, it's awesome, Joe. Thank you so much. We're excited to be here with you.
A lot of new pool projects are breaking ground in time for the 2026 season. Plenty of folks out there are looking for options and ideas. And today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about one of the most versatile water features in modern pool design right now, and that's Scuppers. And I feel like Scuppers are kind of underrated in terms of their versatility, and they've really evolved over the years. It's not just about moving water anymore. It's about shaping the look, the sound, and even the way a space is experienced. Now, Frank, you're going to talk about design trends today and some of what you've been seeing out in the field. And I know Chuck is along for the ride to help fill in some of the gaps about product. So let me ask you, Frank, let's start with one of the big trends you're seeing right now with Scuppers. What's something that's really taken off in modern pool design?
Yeah, great question, Joe. And again, we're focusing on modern pool design. And, for the listeners, Aqua Blue has obviously been founded on pool tile and mosaics. We're primarily a swimming pool tile distributor, and we've expanded into outdoor living over the years, bringing on partners like the Outdoor Plus. Chuck is a fantastic friend and really supports Aqua Blue and the business that we've created. But I got to tell you, man, from a modern perspective, linear is hot right now, linear formats. And so I want to take a little side note and thank you again for publishing my article about the linear revolution as we launched our Blue Haven porcelain tile line last season, which primarily breaks away from traditional 6x6 and goes into 3x6 format, 3x12, as well as 6x24s. And with Scuppers and water features, the trend is no different. In fact, they actually complement each other. So getting on to that, we're seeing designers moving toward clean architectural lines and looking for accent pieces that really support that. Two products that come to mind when I see orders coming through, we're seeing a high demand for the Maya series from the Outdoor Plus. It breaks away from traditional square and round circular fire water bowl selections. These bowls are actually available in 48, 60, and 72-inch linear formats. Today's topic is about water, so they are available in water only, but also in fire-water combos and fire only. Traditionally, you're going to see these on top of a raised feature wall. And again, breaking away from that 6x6 porcelain tile, we're seeing these long linear format tiles being utilized. So it perfectly complements that.
Let me ask you, Frank, when you take a look at a lot of the orders coming through your website these days, what's driving that big trend? Is it more the visual, the sound, or just where the designs are headed right now?
Joe, it's really all three. Functionally, it's all three. But the look is typically what drives that. And getting back to that linear fashion, we're seeing designers and customers really going toward that sleek architectural look. One of our most popular products these days is going to be that smooth flow scupper. And so there's a big buzz about shear descents and a little information about what a shear descent is. Typically, you're going to use one of these scuppers and it runs flush with the wall. So it's almost a hidden, or I shouldn't say it's almost a hidden, it is a hidden element. And it creates a dramatic look of a long linear sheet of water flowing out of the wall into the pool or into a basin, could also be part of a fountain. And the smooth flow scuppers are available in a variety of different sizes. Chuck could also speak to some of the customization of it, whereas if you want to create something a little bit longer than, let's say, 36 inches, they're fully capable of customizing any length of the shear flow scupper in stainless steel or copper.
Yeah, I love that look. A beautiful trend for probably the last 20 years. And they get that effect in a scupper is pretty cool. I mean, Chuck, why don't you jump in there? Because once a builder or the consumer decides that they want that look, now it comes down to the execution. You guys have your smooth flow scuppers. How are those designed to help builders actually achieve that clean and consistent sheer effect that we've been talking about?
Yeah, that's exactly where things can either come together beautifully or they can actually fall apart in the field. Because that clean, that sheer descent look everyone wants, it's actually pretty unforgiving. So if the water flow isn't perfectly even or the unit isn't, designed right internally, you're going to see those breaks in that sheet, the turbulence or the inconsistent flow. And that completely takes away from the aesthetic that they're ultimately going for. So when we design our smooth flow scuppers at the Outdoor Plus, the focus really is on helping builders guarantee that result. So there's a few things that we do, which is done a little bit differently. So first, we've engineered the internal water chamber to evenly distribute that flow across the entire width of the scupper. That's huge because a lot of issues come from water entering unevenly and creating those fingers or gaps in the sheet. Second, we designed the lip and the opening to produce that true clean sheet of water. And that's what gives you that glass-like effect, which is what everyone is looking for when they're doing it. And then third, we made them builder friendly. So proper flow rates, sizing options, install flexibility. We don't want you fighting with the product on site, trying to make it perform. We want you to be able to install and then just know immediately it's going to do what you meant it to do. And at the Outdoor Plus, one thing that we really pride ourselves on is we are a massive manufacturer. We're right here in the United States. We are 100% USA made. So we have multiple CNC machines. We've got about 27 different welding bays. Everything is done by hand, and our team in-house is amazing. Those guys always blow me away. So yes, we do have a catalog which is going to show you your standard sizes, your 6, 12, 24, 36. But if you want to go custom, if you want to go 20 feet long at the Outdoor Plus, we can custom build that in-house. And again, we do that in copper, powder coat, and we also have some stainless as well. So if you are looking for something maybe untraditional, maybe something that you've never really seen before, if you're a designer and you're really wanting to leave an imprint within the industry, the Outdoor Plus can do that for you. Frank's team is amazing at gathering that information, working with our engineers to get all of that together. So yeah, scuppers are definitely something that take pools in the next level, but you want it to be done right the first time.
Thanks for that, Chuck. And I do agree. I mean, there's a couple of things that you got to get right in order to achieve that look that we're talking about. And I think there's a bunch of other things that pool builders unintentionally get wrong sometimes. I mean, sometimes it goes to overuse or mismatch of materials with the rest of the pool design, unintended splash out because of poor placement. But I mean, what do you see builders need to get right on their end?
Yeah, this is where the difference between a good install and a great one, this is where it's really going to show up. This is where you're going to see it. There are really three things that builders need to get right. The first, probably most important, is proper flow rate. A shear descent needs enough water volume to stay consistent across the entire width. So if you're underfeeding it, you're going to get breaks in that sheet. No matter how good the scupper is built, you're always going to see that inconsistent look. The second is level and installation precision. So these features, they're not very forgiving. So if the scupper is even slightly out of level, the water is going to favor one side of that scupper and you're going to lose that clean, uniform look, which is what you're wanting for. And then the third thing is going to be plumbing design and water delivery. So you want smooth, unrestricted flow going into the unit. So proper pipe size, minimizing hard turns right before you get to the scupper, and just making sure that you're not creating turbulence before the water even gets there. Those are the things you need to look for. So those three things: flow, level, and clean plumbing. So if you're going to get that perfect shear of water every time, that's what you need to do.
This Chuck, I was going to chime in and basically say, typically when our builders and trade professionals call in, when they ask, what do I need to look out for? We're typically touching upon those three touch points, right? You got to make sure you're having the proper flow. You got to make sure that you're not restricting the flow and that you're not creating resistance around the bends and corners. because any sort of disruption, you're not going to get that clean, smooth sheet. It could be scattered, it could be slightly broken. And the whole appeal to these shear descents is that clean, undisturbed sheet of flowing water. So it's certainly important to make sure that all those three elements that Chuck just described are accounted for in order to get the desired effect.
Well, Frank, what's another trend you're seeing right now with scuppers that maybe gives a completely different feel than the one we just discussed?
Great question. You know, we're seeing a big trend. I attribute a lot of this to social media. There's some guys that I follow, particularly Foxterra Design out of California. We're seeing a movement from moving away from horizontal installations with cascading water. And we're seeing an increase in overhead installations. So instead of creating a waterfall type effect, we're actually creating a curtain of rain coming from overhead. And the Outdoor Plus has an amazing product called their Rainfall Scupper, which allows you to do this. It comes in a variety of stock sizes. But again, the great thing about working with Chuck, his team at the Outdoor Plus, is everything is fully customizable. One of the great things we're seeing with the Rainfall Scuppers, Joe, is the ability to create division of a space, but in a way that is aesthetically pleasing. I mean, you're still getting the beauty of the visual of the falling water with that rain-like effect. You're also getting the sound and the added ambiance, but you're getting a little separation and definition to your outdoor living space. And as you know, outdoor living it's been trending. Many people want to enhance their outdoor living space to increase the real estate that they can utilize. They're buying fire pits, they're building outdoor kitchens, and a lot of these are catty-cornered or adjacent to the pool deck. So one of the things, again, that we've been seeing through Foxterra is use of these rainfall curtains that just creates a very gentle divide, a visually striking, zen-like divide between the outdoor living space and the pool area. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more designers getting even more creative with the use of these and through creating zones. But make no mistake, it's a very subtle separation because you can see through the sheet of rainwater. You're still seeing what's going on the other side. It's not creating a barrier, so to speak.
Sure. I've seen that too. I mean, it's great. Super happy that you brought up Foxterra because that effect that you're talking about is something that I kind of gravitated to over the past couple of years. We had them on the cover of our magazine with a pool that had that exact effect, that rainfall curtain that we're talking about. And I love the fact that you can create different quadrants and zones and privacy separation between one area and the other. It kind of does that same effect that we were talking about, which is create a privacy curtain, a kind of visual separation or a buffer, if you will, between the swim area and the entertainment area. And I think that's a smart way to utilize that feature. We see it as an emerging trend in pool design for sure. But I mean, how can you achieve that effect with a scupper?
So the functionality of the rainfall scupper really isn't any different than the traditional scuppers. It's just really a changing of how the water escapes that scupper. Rather than having a cut spillway with it cascading out of the side, there's a series of symmetric pipes and drain holes. So the pump is filling up the scupper, filling up that rainfall scupper, filling up that trough. And as long as it is level and the installer takes the time and pays attention to detail, you're going to get a nice, even, beautiful rainfall effect delivered from these scuppers.
Well, Chuck, let me lean into you. I mean, talk to us about the rainfall scuppers. What makes these different and how are builders using them in real world projects today?
Yeah, and that's where things get really fun. And I think that's what Frank was talking about is from that design standpoint, because the rainfall scuppers are almost the opposite of the shear descent. So instead of that clean glass-like sheet, you're getting more of that textured broken water effect. Something that feels a little bit more natural, a little bit more dynamic. It creates movement, sound, and a little bit more personality in the space. So from a design perspective, what we're seeing builders use them in a couple different ways. So a big one is creating ambiance. So that rainfall effect gives you more sound as it's hitting that water, which is great for masking noise. So maybe you've got a property that backs to a highway and you're wanting to kind of drown out that sound of the passing cars. You can use that to kind of mask that noise. But you can also use it the opposite. Maybe you're in the country and you're looking for a little bit more of that Zen feel. So you can absolutely use that same feature to create more of a relaxing, more immersive space, right? So the other way you can do it is by layering water features. So a lot of the builders right now, a lot of the projects that we see coming through, they will combine that shear descent for the architectural look, and then they'll use that rainfall scupper to soften it and add a little contrast. So a lot of builders are getting really creative and adding two of them. So from a practical standpoint, the rainfall scuppers are a little bit more forgiving. And I know I like that Frank mentioned that earlier. You don't need to have that perfectly dialed in flow like you do that shear descent. So builders have a little bit more flexibility on install while getting a really high-end result in the back. So at the Outdoor Plus, we really have two different ways we can do this for you. We can either build that standard sized rainfall scupper. We can custom size it to whatever length you need it to be. And then you can design your own elements to drop that scupper system into. But we also have something that's one of our top selling products right now. It's called the Paradise Falls. It is a structure that we build in-house where we self-install the rainfall scupper, and it actually has its own pump and it'll actually circulate the water for you. So if you just want to have something show up on a pallet where you can set it down, plug it in and use it, we can build the whole structure for you. Or if the pool builder wants to create their own space, they can just install the scupper itself and we can build that for you as well.
Great points, Chuck. I mean, I got to agree that great for creating white noise, ambience, or drowning out highway or street noise. That's a great intention with this product. Layering the water feature is definitely a smart move that I've seen a lot of designers take advantage of. And one thing that stands out to me is the range. I mean, your ability to really customize that from what, 6 inches all the way to 36 inches on some of these products or beyond for the custom stuff. I mean, what does that change in terms of the way a builder thinks about using this product? Is it more about scaling the feature, or is it creating different effects with the ability to create custom lengths?
It's actually both. I'll jump in on that one really quickly because it starts with scaling, but it really turns into design flexibility. At a smaller size, like the 6 to 12 inch, the builders are typically using those a little bit more as accents. Maybe you're spacing a few of them across a wall, adding some rhythm, or just tying into the different elements of the design without overpowering the space. And then once you get into that mid range, you've got that 12 to 24 inch. That's where it becomes more of a feature, a standalone feature. You're starting to make a visual statement. It can stand on its own as a focal point. But then you start going into that 30, 36, and like we mentioned earlier at the Outdoor Plus, we can custom size it to whatever length you want. Now you're talking about creating impact, right? And that's where one or two scuppers really they anchor the wall. They're defining the space and they deliver both the visual and the sound effect in a really big way. So yeah, it is scaling, but it's also giving builders the ability to design differently. So you can go subtle and repeatable, or you can go bold and architectural depending upon the space and what it calls for.
Yeah, I'd just like to tack on to Chuck's comments. Those are all fantastic points, and I definitely share in those sentiments. But one thing that we're seeing, and the one thing that's great about the Outdoor Plus is that, again, going back to the ability to scale and customize, not all our customers are residential customers. When we're seeing projects for, commercial spaces that require these larger units, that's where Outdoor Plus really shines. And, our team is very good at listening to the customer, getting that information, capturing that data, reviewing plans, and putting together a practical plan of action to develop these products and to have them delivered, manufactured right here in the U.S. It's a fantastic partnership.
Let me ask you a question. For me, looking at projects like Foxterra, the way that they use the rainfall effect to break up different sectors of the backyard, I mean, that was very innovative, but it seems like a lot of guys are gravitating towards being able to achieve that with this product. And with that range, I mean, are you seeing more designers and more builders combine multiple units or use dividers to create sections and break up the space that way?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing both, but I would have to say, it really starts with understanding what the size range unlocks first. So once builders see scuppers going from about 6 inches all the way up to 36 inches, they stop thinking of it as a one look with different widths, and they start assigning intent to each size. So the smaller units tend to get used a little bit more for rhythm and repetition, where you want more of a cleaner, more architectural line of water, and then you scale up. So those larger pieces become more of a statement feature. They add a little bit more volume, a little bit more sound, a little bit more presence. So once that mindset is in place, that's where the creative layers start happening, right? So yes, we do see builders combine multiple units to build rhythm across a wall, almost like a cadence of water. And in other cases, they'll use physical breaks in the wall, columns, reveals, material changes, just to divide the run into sections. So each grouping of scuppers feels a little bit more intentional, and instead of it just being one long continuous run. So what's really happening is they're not just placing scuppers wherever they want to anymore. They're now composing the wall. And the range and size gives them the ability to adjust to give different looks for different purpose.
I'm glad you hit on that, Chuck. I mean, when someone's planning one of these overhead rainfall features, it can look tacked on if you're not being mindful and intentional about the placement of the feature. I mean, what do builders and designers need to be thinking about upfront when they're going to go with one of these features?
When our customers call in, it's actually quite literal, right? It's send us pictures of your space. It really is tied into how much space do you have to work with and what is your idea for that space. And then once you ask those questions and you see the visual pictures of where you want the installation, then you can recommend, okay, you need a 36-inch rainfall scupper, or you know what, I think maybe you can get away with 2 of the 12-inch ones. Oh, that's a really long wall. A singular unit isn't going to work there. We're going to either have to do multiple units or we're going to have to customize. So honestly, typically when that question comes in, it's really married to the size of the space and what the customer's vision is. But, to answer your question upfront, what does the installer or the builder need to be aware of? I think they also need to be conscious of where that water is falling. You had mentioned that earlier in the conversation. I was talking with Chuck the other day, and we were discussing how actually wind may have an impact on the waterfall. So if you're in a big gusty area, maybe you want to set that wall back a little further so that you don't have water splashing into your outdoor living space if you're using it as a rain curtain. So things like that. I know Chuck can speak more to the technicalities of the installation, but many of the things we mentioned today, again, was making sure you have an independent pump to handle the flow directly to that scupper so you can turn it on and off. You want to take plumbing, certainly pre-planning for plumbing certainly comes into account. Chuck, you want to tackle on from there?
No, actually, I think you hit it really well. I like the fact that you touched on environment. I think environment has a lot to do with planning and putting these together. Like you mentioned, we did talk about that the other day on that other project. Wind can play a factor, right? If I've got a rainfall scupper and I'm in a high wind environment, instead of that water landing in the pool, which is what we're shooting for, it can get blown around. It can go on the coping or on the concrete, and now we're missing our target, right? So environment can play a factor. I also think homeowner desire, I think, is another thing as well. What look does the homeowner want to go with? So I think, just what is the vision? What is the purpose? What's going to make this special for the homeowner? I think is also something that, builders are really taking into consideration. And then being able to use either standard or even custom building is something that's going to make it a unique piece for that homeowner. I know a lot of the homeowners out there really want their home to stand out. They want it to be one of a kind. They want it to be unique. And so when you start layering not just water features, but also fire features, and you start bringing those two worlds together, we take what is typically just a body of water, and now we're really starting to create a backyard oasis. So where's my fire pit going to go? Where's my barbecue island going to be? Where do I want my rain scuppers to be? Or what type of shear descent do I want? Now I'm creating a backyard oasis. Now we're going to create an environment where memories are made, where the neighbors peer over that fence and see what's going on and be like, oh man, I really wish I had that, right? So builders today are getting really creative, and just by being able to take purpose and design and different options and customization, you can really let yourself stand out as a pool builder when you're not just going cookie cutter, but now you're really designing with intent.
Yeah, we absolutely love the fire and water combos. And as you've been talking about, layering in multiple elements to create that dramatic effect in the environment. You were sharing some photos with me the other day from a customer that not only installed a fire water combo, I believe it was the Maya, on a nice feature wall, but behind it was your rainfall scuppers. There was a feature
Yeah.
wall, the cascading rain, and really with that fire going on that fire water combo at nighttime, with the fire flickering off of the following rain curtain, I mean, it just really brought that entire area to life. It was absolutely gorgeous. Thanks for sharing that.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up because that one particular project, that was about a 14-foot long rainfall scupper. And then we did about a 10-foot long linear burner stepped in front of it. And again, that the rainfall creates like a backdrop. And then the fire sitting in front of it creates just this, I don't know, there's just something mystic about that fire look on there as well. So again, layering the features is a great way to create that statement piece.
Couldn't agree more.
These are great insights, Frank. And you and I had discussed this trend last week earlier, and you said you were going to have a list of great products that fit this design trend to a T, and that was ornamental design. I mean, what are you seeing right now when it comes to more ornamental or decorative scuppers?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think this kind of just goes back to nothing beats a classic. I mean, through this conversation, we've discussed two emerging trends based on modern design. We've discussed the shear descents and, getting those scuppers close to the wall so they're not visible. And it creates the effect of the water coming out almost like seamlessly from the wall. We also discussed the overhead rainfall. But getting back to an original classic, scuppers were meant to be visual. And there's a variety of them from the Outdoor Plus. And based on the customer's aesthetic and what they're going for, there's typically, an option for them. If they want to do something, let's say a little bit more, maybe have that quaint courtyard feel, they're probably going to gravitate to something like one of the Canon scuppers or something made of copper that's going to patina. And these intentionally stick out from the wall. They're available in a variety of lengths. And it's more of a sculptural statement piece rather than something that fades into the background. It gives you a little bit of a fountain effect. And since we're talking about modern design, I'd say that most of our customers are leaning toward the clean lines, the clean linear lines. So we've got the straight spillway scupper, we've got the chamfered minis, there's a V-style scupper. We also have the box scuppers. And typically for the modern contemporary design, the pattern has been more toward that stainless steel as it doesn't patina and it has that more modern type look.
Chuck, Frank mentioned a wide range of products here: Canon scuppers, radius, V-shaped. I mean, you've even got wall-mounted bowl scuppers. Can you walk us through some of the options that he mentioned? I mean, how do builders typically decide which direction to go with something like this?
Yeah, at that point, it really stops being about which scupper do I pick. That's not really the question and becomes a little bit more about design. Becomes a little bit more of a design question. I think what Frank is talking about, that Canon, the radius, the V-shape, the bowl style, like that Maya, which is a beautiful option as well. Those are all very different expressions of water, if I can say it that way. So builders are usually choosing based on the architecture and the story of the space, not just about flow rate and size. So, for example, that Canon style scupper that tends to lean a little bit more towards that traditional or maybe even that Mediterranean type of style. They're directional, a little bit more dramatic, and they're naturally become a focal point. The radius and the curved forms feel more transitional or modern classic because they soften the water and integrate it into arched or organic design lines. The V shapes are much more contemporary and geometric, and they read very clean. They're very intentional, almost architectural in how the water is framed. So then you get into the bowl scuppers like the Maya, the Kazo, the Sedona, and those are almost a hybrid between that water feature and the sculpture, right? Because we can build those in concrete or stainless steel or powder coat, or we can do it in hammered copper and smooth copper. We have multiple sizes, multiple shapes. We can do one spillway, two spillways, four spillways, 360 spillways. We have an endless supply of options when it comes to the sculpture. So they're not just mounted, they're displayed, right? So builders use those when they want that water element to be a part of the aesthetic, even when it's off. especially in a more curated outdoor living space, like we're seeing the trends move towards right now.
Yeah, Chuck, I couldn't agree with you more that the customers are selecting, when they call us here at Aqua Blue, they're really selecting the scupper that fits the space, the look, the aesthetic that they're trying to achieve. So I couldn't agree with you more there. One product, Joe, that I'd really like to talk about because we're actually starting to see it move, and it's kind of a standout from all of the different scuppers offered by the Outdoor Plus. I'm going to circle back to this Maya. Chuck, we were discussing this as well the other day. It's one of the only scuppers that I see that's actually installed and looks more like a floating sconce,
Mm-hmm.
where a linear format scupper, but it's in a bowl format, except that backside is flat and it gets flush mounted to the wall. Yeah, really loving this one. You want to speak a little bit toward that?
Yeah, so those wall-mounted kind of bowl-shaped scuppers. So the back of it has 4 bolts, so you can mount it to the wall. A lot of our fire and fire water bowls, the water inlet is on the bottom of the bowl, but what we do is I actually put it through the back of the bowl on this one. So it mounts to the wall. It's super clean. Your inlet is going to be on the rear of the unit. It's about an inch and a half inlet on the back. And again, now you're taking structure, you're taking the structure of the bowl, you're combining that with the beauty of the water flow. And again, it's just going to take your pool design, it's going to take your elements to that next level.
I'm glad you guys took a pit stop on the Maya one because that one's definitely a very pretty scupper. It's very architectural for sure. If we're talking about architectural, experiential, or artistic, when it comes to scuppers, I mean, is picking out the right one really a mix, or is it more depending on the project?
Great question, Joe, but I'm going to circle back to my original answer when we first got started. It's really a combination of all three, the style, the function, the sound, the ambiance. That's four. But, all of those elements that were just mentioned are equally important, but truly, I believe it's the design that's delivering the trend, that's moving the trend forward. Customer typically calls, they have a certain look, they want to present us with some photographs. I saw this in a magazine. I really like this look. What do you have? And so it's, yes, the sound of water, creating that ambiance, the aesthetic, that's all part of it, but it's really the look that the homeowner or the builder is going for. And fortunately, working with the Outdoor Plus, we have such an extensive catalog that there's truly a product for every scenario. And if it doesn't exist, we can create it.
Let's talk about the catalog. I mean, for builders listening who may be thinking about one of the products that we talked about today, what's the easiest point of entry for them to get started elevating their designs?
Sign up with Aqua Blue today and have access to the Outdoor Plus scuppers and water features. No, seriously though, all jokes aside, anyone that's listening that doesn't currently have access to these fantastic products, Aqua Blue Mosaics, we're truly a one-stop shop. We're experts in pool, spa, outdoor living environments. We're not just scuppers. Our foundation is in pool tile. We've got the installation products, waterproofing products, hardscapes, including 2cm porcelain pavers and decking, artificial turf, every single major manufacturing brand of in-pool furniture. I mean, if you guys are listening, if you don't have a showroom, or if you do, or if you don't have a showroom, doesn't matter. We're here to support you. We've got a fantastic trade program and a team of educated staff that can help you out, every step of the way. And, we have relationships with great people like Chuck, who I'm happy to call a great friend. We've been working together for years. And, we're just want to let everyone know that we're here to support you.
Yeah, and Frank, thank you. We as a manufacturer spend a lot of time trying to create great products, and we hold ourselves to a really high standard to make sure that when we ship out a product, it's done well, it's done right. But it's really what takes it to the next level is our partnerships. It's those pool builders out in the industry that are using our products, but with our teammates over there with Frank Aqua Blue, they're such a good trusted source. If you are new to scuppers, if it's something you're not getting into, you've got to get in with a team that can guide you, hear what your pool design is, answer the questions, get those orders entered, get them out the door right away. And Frank's team is amazing. They'll definitely take care of you. As far as products go, what's the easiest way to kind of get into it? Don't overthink it. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, or get too deep into having it to be perfect because the scuppers themselves, that finished detail, They're going to take care of themselves when you actually get it installed. I think pool builders right now, there's a lot of pool builders out there. And when a pool builder does a pool right, that homeowner is going to show off their pool, and it is your name, it is your company, it is your phone number that's going to get shared with all their friends and family. So being able to design a pool space that allows that homeowner to show off a little bit, that really creates that Zen feel or has those unique elements which make it different than all of the neighbors' pools. I mean, as a pool builder, that's where you're really going to start to see that ROI, right? That return on your investment. You start adding that fire, you start adding that water, you're going to see those referrals increase pretty quickly.
Great point. I think the big takeaway here is that Scuppers aren't just a finishing touch anymore. They're a real design tool. And when you're going for something clean and architectural, something immersive like a rainfall effect, or even something more ornamental and bold, there's a lot more you can do with them than most people even realize. Frank, Chuck, really appreciate you both coming on and breaking this down for us. A lot of great value here for builders that are looking to step their game up.
Thank you, Joe, for having us. It's always such a pleasure to be a part of these podcasts with you. And we're so excited to be able to share these scuppers and those fire and water features with all those pool builders out there. So give Frank's team a call, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the job sites.
A truly big thanks again, Joe, for having us both on today's podcast. We look forward to more down the road.
For everyone listening, if you're not already incorporating Scuppers into your projects, this is probably a good time to start paying attention to where this part of the design trend is going. And if you want to learn more about the products that we just talked about today, check out Aqua Blue Mosaics and the Outdoor Plus. As always, thanks for tuning into the Pool Magazine podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast.
This episode of Pool Magazine Podcast is proudly sponsored by 10Jam. Thinking of adding a sun shelf to your pool? Infinity by 10Jam is a freestanding sun shelf that can be delivered, installed, and ready for use on the same day. Finally, a tanning ledge without the need for costly pool renovation. Infinity by 10Jam is the fastest and most simple way to add a sun shelf to your existing pool. Want to learn more? Visit us on the web today at www.10jam.com.